say information from both of you. And I think the link is now been ready. So over to Professor Panchamaji for proper
Thank
introduction.
you very much,
Yeah,
sir.
thank you. Namaskar.
Now I would like to welcome Dr. Sakat Kumar Basu and Madam Dr. Suparna Sanyal Mukherjee ji. Welcome, Madam. Today we are
Thank you.
celebrating poinsettia day. That is a flower and that can be related to our home garden. So, without wasting much time, I would like to welcome you again on Home Garden, our 1139 webinar, and welcome Dr. Sakat Basuji and Dr. Chopada. Dr. Sakat Basu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma. Once again, it is my pleasure to be present on this August platform. Because it is quite late, I will just restrict to the very basics of home gardening and give you a little outline of how home gardening is changing around the world and why is it so. So, getting back right into the topic, is home gardening is something that we are all aware of. Whether in the past days, like 3 or 4 decades back, when used to have more joint families, and even to till date days when we are having more of nuclear families, home gardening has always been a part of our society culture across all the continents. It's not just something that we have been adorned and have known for centuries, even in India and Asia, but it is a practice that is due in every other countries that we know in and around wherever there is human civilization, possibly except those areas which are either deserts or arctic areas and stuff where we cannot grow plants and flowers or fruits orchards. So this is mostly a practice in tropical, subtropical, temperate countries, subtemperate areas where you can regenerate and produce fruits, flowers, etc. in a controlled way in your own backyard. So from very long period of time, it has been very important that we have been growing not only food in an agricultural fashion where we are growing them in large fields. It is also a desire for us to have those same things in a miniature form in and around us. And from this, our home gardening concept has stepped in. And we always used to have kitchen gardens and always used to have a little garden in front of us. But over the time, as we have become more and more busy, our lives have been restricted into apartment rather than houses and stuff. The amount of accessible areas in the urban area or the urban localities, municipalities and corporations are much reduced. So we do not have the privilege like our ancestors to have big gardens or big backyard or kitchen gardens. But now what we have is more of a small dedicated garden in our balcony or rooftop or other small areas or lawns that we can afford within our small home areas. In Western countries, many people have big gardens, which usually get into flowering from summer to the fall, which is autumn, and has been a part of this tradition and culture of great summer blooms that we would see, where beautiful flowers come into blooms in the summertime in colder countries. And for India, it is mostly during the monsoon or during the winter season where we see a wide diversity of flowers. The Alipur Horticultural Garden in Kolkata, which is close to the Indian National Library and the zoo in the Belvedere Road, is one of the most outstanding collection of tropical, subtropical, and seasonal plants with spectacular blooms. They have used to have a lot of exhibitions. It was stopped during the COVID and is still getting back. And anyone visiting Calcutta, particularly during the winter between say November to February, it's a must visit if you could make it to the Alipur horticultural garden, which is a spectacular collection of beautiful flowering plants. Simply unimaginable unless you visit this particular area. But nonetheless, as we have been all used to these beautiful flowers and stuff, and as the expenses have been going in, and our housing areas are getting restricted and more, free space for doing these gardens have been more restricted. So what people have been doing is they have been using their balcony Those who could afford their roofs or accessible to the roofs is accessible, they are going for the roof garden, which is also a kind of a home garden where you can start fruit orchards, grow different kind of seasonal flowers or hobby planting, cactus, orchids, whatever you want, particularly in restricted environment. Those who can spend more money, you can really have a rooftop garden or a rooftop forest. And it has been becoming quite popular in various parts of the world as well as in India too. But it is important to note that a roof garden, unless it is being done very scientifically or under trained people or management people who can handle those gardens, it can rather do great harm to your roof rather than looking beautiful, because many of these plants can penetrate deep into the substratum, into the structure of your roof, and can make damages by creating small crevices inside, which could lead to trapping of water, seepage of water, damping, salt accumulation, and various other issues that may need renovations, and that also in large financial amount. May not be a very good idea for people who are not used to it, but nonetheless we do use roof as a great source of home gardening. Previously, it was still very common in the rural areas in almost every countries to have kitchen gardens. In rural areas, people usually harvest all their food sources that they need throughout the year, and then so a kitchen garden where they can grow some spices, some vegetables, and some common grown medicinal plants is very common in the rural areas. It used to be common in the urban areas too, for I mean 4 or 5 decades back, but it is not available anymore due to the increasing level of pollution and lack of space that we have. But this very simple concept of home gardening, which was just for recreational or aesthetic purpose in our personal life, has made big ventures now, and it is used in various other areas and ways. What it is, one other thing that has come up with home gardening, what we call as a vertical gardening. If you have seen in many places that you have vertical walls and they place pots and tubs together vertically along the wall, and plants are potted on them, and then they are watered, and it turns your entire wall green. Unless this is very well done, I have seen that most of the time, unless they are well maintained and regularly monitored, many of the time these plants die very fast. And once these green, lush green plants start dying, your vertical garden start looking very ugly and looks like a skeleton being exposed. Then it may turn so bad and so ugly because all the plants have died. You may have to take out all the pots or repot them and collect them and place them. Sometimes the walls are too high, and unless you use a ladder, you usually cannot reach the very high level of the vertical garden, and you cannot put manure, fertilizers, or you can water them properly. This is one of the reasons these vertical gardens are not sometimes doing very good. Sometimes it needs so much extensive monitoring and care that it has not become very quite popular. But where it is well maintained, it could give you an impact of a forest generated on the wall. You could have fern, you could have various small flowering plants, particularly creepy crawling plants that grow across the wall, and then they could beautify and adorn your wall significantly. But again, these are plants and each of them have roots, and they can penetrate deep into the wall and can also do considerable damage to the wall if they are exposed to the plants for a long time. So although it looks ornamental, it is a bit expensive, and unless well maintained, may not be a very useful idea for many, but it has a spectacular look. It has a very new aesthetic look, and it is slowly becoming popular around the world. So this is one of the home gardens that is coming up now, right now. The other kind of home gardens are for different purposes. Now, in many rural areas, particularly in tropical countries, subtropical countries, or developing or underdeveloped countries, there has been a trend of growing nutritional park or nutritional garden, which is also a kind of a home garden, where you are using your backyard space or your lawns for growing fruits, small fruit trees, different kinds of berries. include, and also a lot of vegetables, seasonal vegetables that you can grow on them. Like this is winter time, and you can grow a lot of these cabbages, cauliflowers, and other members of the mustard families, lettuce, and other vegetables pretty easily. It is quite easy to grow onion and garlic and other vegetables that even people have started growing a wide diversity of lettuce that are very high end, and you usually used to get them in the high end restaurants or in very big supermarkets. Now people are growing them in their backyard garden, because there is this case of increased use of insecticides and pesticides on the crops that we buy, and it is quite inconvenient for many people who are health conscious not to buy those products which could be laden with lots of pesticides or chemical residues. So rather, they are using their garden spaces to grow vegetables that they can use throughout the year. But it is possible to sustain your family by having such vegetable gardens, fruit gardens, or fruit orchards, which are also known as community gardens in some countries. Why is it called community garden? So if you have a small garden and you grow some vegetables and fruits and whatnot, and some flowers, it may sustain a small part of your need, but it cannot sustain your neighbor. It cannot sustain people visiting your houses and stuff. You need bigger spaces, and such bigger spaces are not always available or accessible to people. So the concept of community gardens have come in many developing countries like Mexico, where they have earmarked a big park where the people in the neighborhood can come and rent out a specific portion of the land, and they can grow vegetables, they can put their fruit trees. There are trained people who take care for the management, and once your fruits and vegetables have matured, you are welcome to come on specific dates and harvest them and take them back home. So these gives an opportunity for those who do not have enough space for having a garden where they can use to grow vegetables, fruit trees, and other associated materials that they may use throughout the year. You can rent a space and you can grow them and you can harvest and come back. And this is being maintained professionally in exchange of a particular price tag that it is prescribed for your community garden. This concept has become not only popular in developing countries in Latin America, Africa, this has now become extremely popular even in European countries across USA and Canada, where people are getting used to community gardens. In case of Cuba, which was a communist country, they have large urban kitchen gardens where they use these big parks not only for people to travel around and walk, but they use them extensively for growing vegetables, fruit trees, bushy fruit trees to tree fruit trees, and they allocate the space in such a way that they can use the park for growing say 30 to 40 different species throughout the year, and people can benefit by collecting vegetables from them at a minimal price. And each park is dedicated to a particular community, so that people with 15 households can use this particular park as their community garden park, and things like that. Another particular home garden that has become quite popular is the corporate home gardens. So if you are visiting these days any corporate big houses, or an academic institute, or a research institute, or a well-maintained government or a non-government organizational office, few things that are very common for the beautification and ornamentation are beautiful lawns. And most of these lawns are maintained by professional farmers, or particular what you call the particular gardening facilities or gardening small companies that come and maintain your garden and gives your garden a super good look. Even some people who can spend an extra money can have these gardeners coming and maintaining your home garden too, if it is a residential area to thing too. But other than that, is if you would see, it has become a popular gardening, whether you are utilizing ornamental plants on the boulevards or the avenues, planting new trees. The forest department comes and shares a lot of trees across India and various Indian cities for the beautification purpose, and also for the purpose of greening of the cities, to to bring the annual temperature of the city down and have a cooler breezes, try and bringing more birds and insects back into the city ecosystem and things like that. So these are also kinds of garden that are coming up very now new, and we are calling them as city parks or city gardens. Every new organization or institutional corporate office or government offices that are coming up are adorned by beautifully in lawns with various seasonal flowers, trees, bushes, various perennial trees, so that they look very beautiful and very well maintained. That's also a kind of a home gardening. We call it corporate gardening because there is quite a cost of maintaining these beautiful gardens. Then there is also home garden in the form of miniature Japanese garden, which does not have too many flowering plants, but they use rock sands and various non-flowering gymnosperms or pine-like species that are being used for ornamenting. This is also very common. The other part of home gardening is also in the form of giant aquariums. Nowadays, if you visit most of the hospital or the corporate hospitals, you would see in the sitting area, there is a huge, large aquarium, very beautifully decorated with aquatic plants and colorful fishes traveling and enjoying by traveling through the weeds. This is created because it has been found through in psychological research that it helps the watching fish aquarium or fish tanks helps people to calm down. They have a better composure, better mental peace, and particularly in case of hospitals, educational institute, where people come with a bunch of stress, it is important to have something live and active in front of them that helps in reducing their stress. And aquariums have been found to be one of the very good diversion of attention object that has been doing very good in people reducing people's stress. Now, most of these beautiful aquariums, which are several thousands to few lakhs in their maintenance costs throughout the year, have very beautiful aquatic plants placed in them, and it is so beautiful to see fishes as just like as they would do in their natural habitat, that they're moving through those plants and trees also give a very strong and very good positive mental health like attributes, and it's also a kind of aquatic home garden that is being used. The other kind of home garden, which is not so popular in India, but has become quite popular in the rural areas and also in other countries, is called the aquaponics. What is aquaponics? This is like growing your fish and vegetables together. Say, for example, if you want to grow fish like tilapia that breeds very fast, that has very low maintenance cost, and they will only eat on aquatic weeds and stuff. If you prepare a tank on your roof and you have a bunch of tilapia thriving in them, and if you provide them with some fish food, you will see within a very short time, you would see that they're multiplying. And if you are providing a fish food, they're increasing in their number. You can harvest the fish, you can use them as your food sources. But at the same time, the fish also releases waste materials, which are collected at the bottom of the pool. And unless they are cleaned from time to time, they turn detrimental for the quality of water in which the fish is surviving, and they reduce the oxygen content and the fishes may die. So one of the new concepts that are being utilized now is to flow this water. Like, so you have your old water in which the fish has thrived and the fish has produced and dropped all their waste materials at the bottom. So you start adding fresh water from one tap into that particular water tank, and the wastewater is coming out through the other pipe, and it is going through what we call is an aquaponics, which is an aquatic system of growing plants. So if you have tiny seedlings of lettuce, tomato plants, and various spice plants like mentha and other species, if you grow them on this water, they do not need any additional nutrient supplements, as this water is very rich in fish waste, which means that they are very rich in nitrogenous waste. You add a few micronutrients which are available in the market, and in the greenhouse you can grow, or in the roof you can grow fish at one side and use the wastewater of the fish for growing vegetables that are growing straight on that waste fish water. And they are utilizing that wastewater, and they're producing high quality. If you go and see those kind of system, you'd see that the leaves are pretty green, which means they're very fresh and rich in protein, as their roots are deriving rich fish related waste material rich in ammonia and other things that helps in the plants to build their protein. This is another kind of home garden that is becoming quite popular. The other kind of home garden which is also getting popular is called the Miyazaki forest. Within a small area of 100 say square feet, they are using a special soil combination which is rich in artificially prepared different kind of soil bacteria, soil fungi. These are mixed, and then they plant 20 or 30 different plant species, just like a miniature forest within that area. And there is very little maintenance, and you would find that inside your garden you are having a small forest coming up with miniature bamboos, other thriving plants, snake plants, and those things that gives a very rough green organic a generation of the forest. This Miyazaki forest concept was started in Japan, and this forest concept is now becoming a big source of urban forestry in many developed countries and in some developing countries. In India, this has started really in a small way, but now it is getting quite popular and people are utilizing them. And the Miyazaki forest is another kind of home garden. The last but not the least home garden is what we call is very popularly used as pollinator garden or pollinator sanctuary or bee gardens or butterfly gardens, where people, particularly this is a very educational garden for kids, where parents can buy a wide different range of pollinator friendly flowering species that attract bees, butterflies, moths, beetles, flies, ants that are important for their pollination. These flowers bloom up, and at the same time they help with the pollinators in coming and visiting the garden. It's a very organic origin and is very much appreciated in the West. I have done a quite of research, is my personal research area in generating pollinator gardens and pollinator sanctuaries. So the home gardens have also taken shape in the form of pollinator gardens like this. So with all these different forms of garden, we have changed the definition of home garden, and it has been becoming a really good floral industry, or or an industry where in part of horticulture, where people are investing good amount of money, and many unemployed youth are finding employment by by serving as managerial positions in maintaining those gardens. They are helping in maintaining those gardens, replacing sick plants with healthy plants and stuff, removing debris, and it's a good source of new income that is coming up in India and other countries. So thus, home gardening has traveled a long way from our humble kitchen garden and lawns to corporate gardens, city parks, and botanical small parks or urban forestry, into rooftop vegetation and vertical wall and pollinator gardens down in the line. So this is in short, in a nutshell, the various aspects of home gardening. And once again, I made it short, so because we are getting late. Thank you very much. And once again, it has been a privilege for me to be present on this August platform. And thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Dr. Sakat. Nicely explained. In absolutely your way, excellent. Great flow and best content. I would like to request now Dr. Suparna ji, Suparna Sardial ji. आज लेट हो गए हैं,
हाँ,
मैं
बहुत
क्षमा
लेट हो
चाहता हूँ.
Very good evening to all of you. So I have prepared the PPT. I don't know if it is possible, then I am sharing this PPT.
Yes.
Yes,
It
sir.
will be on YouTube. Anyone can see at their convenience.
Yes, sir.
Welcome. Sorry for being late. Sorry.
Is it visible now? Is it visible?
No.
It's still
Why?
loading.
Agnihotri sir, take.
Yes, sir, it's still loading. It's not visible. It's under process, I think.
Is Zoom platform, it is getting very
Yeah, it's a
difficult.
little bit slow. Yeah, it will take a little time, but it will appear here.
Oh, it is not yet bit visible. Just a minute. So, okay, I'm just stating. So, skin sharing is not coming. Just a minute.
Yeah, madam, I think it is better to start. Yeah, if it comes, we will be able to see. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's start. So today's topic is the home gardening and its impact, socio-cultural impact in the tribal life. So I, Professor Dr. Mukherjee from SECOM Skills University, vegetables and herbs for personal consumption, as well as creating aesthetics and diversity for birds and insects, especially the life and with attractive or flower beds. Home gardening requires gardening knowledge, ongoing nurturing of the plants, maintenance skills, and consistent involvement. A garden is an area designed for cultivating and displaying plants. The home gardening of defined that also can be stated as the cultivation of a small part of the land near the house. So, this cultivation includes vegetable, berries, fruits, flowers, then grains, species, herbs, ornamental, and the medicinal that can be served as a source of income and food. What is the preface of home gardening? Then home gardening is the act of turning an outside space into a productive and functional area of the family, as well as a home for plants and animals that have otherwise lost their homes to urban development. Gardening is the practice of growing and cultivating the plants as part of the horticulture, especially in the gardens. Like ornamental plants are often grown for their flowers, then the foliage or overall appearance. Useful plants such as the root vegetables, then the leaf vegetables, then fruits, herbs, and grown for the consumption for use of dips and medicinal and all the cosmetics uses. Then we can come to the point of view that how the tribes are maintaining this home gardening. So they have their traditional uses at the same time the modern uses. So first I would like to come to the traditional uses, how they are pointing out the home gardening in their parts of life. So especially the if I can go to the step one, that is the start small. They always started as the small gardening. So they do not try to create a massive garden from a day. So they started in a small area. They choosing a small space to work with the expand as become the more confident and the comfortable with their skills. Then the finding the proper spot. So next step is the finding for proper spot. In that kind of place, they grow vegetables. Need to choose a spot that about 6 hours of full sunshine every day. They have to look after the 6 hours of full sunshine. If someone do not do how to do the home gardening at the near about of their house, so they are look after them because there are a few peoples and they give the responsibility of the parts of the family members. So someone is looking after the sunlight, the 6 hour sunlight should be there, and then the chosen spaces get the person who can use a sun calculated. The sun calculated they used to do is the traditional method. So that they can use their material culture for this sun calculation. Then the third step, the access to water. So they can make sure that they can get the water from the nearby places, like the canals, like the water contains the water flow, or the near about ponds, etc. If they have a tap with the right next to their intended garden space, they can need to invest a long hose with the contour nozzle. So at the same time, watering the gardens is a daily important work which they maintain for the home gardening, and they can plan it and they maintain it through their plans. Then the next step is preparing the soil. How they prepare the soil for the home gardening. So they prepare the soil for the plants. If the soil is quite compacted, they can work out for the betterment of that particular soil. The soil should not be loosened. The soil should grow the plants. They uses the pesticides at the same time, the homemade and the traditional made, the pestification and the fertility to develop the fertility of the soil. Then the tiller or regular digging fork. So then they do the organic compost. So organic, inorganic, both the ways they can prepare it and they can use it for the development or the fertility of the soil. Then the create beds. So they can dig the soil from the intended patches and placing it in the areas where they will plant. So this is depend upon the planning. So they can build the beds of a few centimeters, and then they develop the planning. Then the gardening of the beds. So they are gardening in the beds. They prepare the beds and on the particular plant, and there are various beds they prepared according to their soil conditions and the same time the area condition and the spot selection. Then they started their planting. So another steps is very important. So watering. So water the entire garden and allow some time for the beds to settle it. And then it is the common for wheat seeds to germinate and start to grow in the days to follow tilling. This is the normal way. Hold off planting for now and rather visit the garden space very few days and remove the young weeds from the beds. Then plant the new seeds into the beds and following the planting instructions, the way they are selected, they are stepping and they plant it. And then if they don't like the seeds, particular the seeds which is not particularly growing on, they can throw it out, and then again they can use the land which is called the jhum cultivation. They practices in this traditional method of way. Then the benefits of home gardening, what benefit they used to get it? Now food security, then reduce, the hormonal section like cholesterol in the body, less stress. If they don't get the work in proper time, they can use their time in the home gardening. So when the body getting the very stress and there is no work, so if there is no 100 days program, so if there is a lazy period, they can start it the home gardening for remove their stress. At the same time, improve immune system. They can develop the immune system through the home gardening. Then the good workout and the reduce the carbon footprint. So this carbon footprint is also very important because they don't have any shoes or any kinds of the covering of their feet. So they can use the carbon footprint through which they can develop the immune system at the body power. At the same time, if they can work in the home garden place, the oxygenation and they can develop their build up their wealth. And so, there is another one point is very important, that is the sacred grove. Sacred grove and its importance in the tribal lives as home gardening. The sacred grove of India are forest fragments of varying various sizes, which are commonly protected and which usually have a significant religious connotation for the protected community. Hunting and logging are usually strictly prohibited within the forest areas, and for the patches of the forest or the community forest system or the village forest, protected forest, reserve forest, everywhere it is restricted. So other forms of forest uses like honey collection and deadwood collection are sometimes allowed to a sustainable basis. Especially the NGOs work with local villages to protect such groups. Traditionally, and in some cases even today, members of the community take turns to protect the grove. The introduction to the protected area of category, the community reserves under the Wildlife Protection Act, amended Act at 2002, which was implemented and has introduced legislation for providing government protection to community headlands, which could include the sacred groups. So sacred groups are very important for the tribal well-being, for the tribal culture, for the tribal behavior, and for the tribal socio-cultural impact. So Indian sacred groups. What are the Indian sacred group? Now around 14,000 sacred groups have been reported from all over India, which is reservoirs of the rare fauna and flora. More than rare flora, at the same time amid rural and even urban settings. Experts believe that the total number of sacred groups could be as high as 1 lakh. So threats to the groups include urbanization and over-exploitation of resources. While many of groups are looked upon as abode of Hindu deities, in the recent past, a number of them have been partially cleared for construction of the shrines and temples. Sacred groups are places of yatra, that means the pilgrimage in Indian origin religions such as the Hinduism, Jainism, Sikhism, and Buddhism, etc. Then sacred groups, what are the uses of sacred groups? Why the tribes are practicing, why the tribes are involved in their socio-cultural aspects, and they are maintaining the sacred group as the home gardening. Because there is the traditional uses I have told earlier, that one of the most important tradition uses of sacred groups was it acted as a respiratory for various Ayurveda medicines, which is the involves a source of replenishable resources like fruits and honey. In most sacred groups, it was taboo to hunt or chop wood. The vegetation cover helps reduce soil erosion and prevents desertification, as in Rajasthan. Then the groups are often associated with ponds and streams and meet water requirements of local communities. They sometimes help in reaching aquifers as well. And then the modern uses. In modern times, sacred groups have common biodiversity. We can mention it as a biodiversity hotspot. So biodiversity hotspots, as various species seek refuge in the area due to the progressive habitat destruction and hunting. So sacred groups often contain plant and animal species that have become, extinct in neighboring areas. They therefore harbor great genetic diversity. And beside these sacred groups in urban landscapes act as lungs. We can consider the sacred groups as the lungs in the urban sector, so to the city, as well as providing much needed vegetation which is covered. There are several tribes like Santal, those who say the sacred groups as their Jahethan, because there are 5 medicinal plants they implanted in the sacred group, and they pray every time, every day. They give it is a holy place to them, where they are worshipping the trees as a sacred group. There is a Ora in Rajasthan. They are also practicing the sacred groups. They have the sacred group where they maintain their deity. In case of the deity, they always keeping the animal's head. So might be some places they have, if they have the spiritual belief, they can place the animal heads in the sacred group, which they worship in the every ritual, every day for their ritualistic activities. So sacred group is very important in case of the Santal, in case of the Munda, in case of the Orao, the Birhor, then the Mahali. They are always maintaining this sacred group, and it is very important to their socio-cultural life, which help them to grow, because this is the biodiversity aspects, the hotspot of the sacred group. Because every time if we destroy our forest, if the forest denudation is continuously going on, but at the same time our flora and fauna is getting endangered. Several medicinal plants are getting endangered. But in case of the sacred grove, if we are maintaining, the tribals are maintaining in their day-to-day life, for their daily sustenance, which can give them the good health, then their well-being. It is at the same time the medicinal aspects, because they cannot go to the doctors as and when, so it is can protect them for the getting they can eradicate various types of diseases. Hence, the rapid march of modernization over the past century, which has been, especially the Indian sacred groups, and altered the traditional social system that had protected them. The threats to sacred groups differ as much as the regions of the groups themselves. The sacred groups in many parts of the country have been destroyed, and over the past century to the make way for development projects, at the same time as urbanization, railway roads, then highways, the dams, etc., etc. In many places, the government has ignored local communities' customary rights and the customary management rights, and allowed the development of commercial forestry operations, then the encroachment by the people migrating from outside the community who do not respect traditional practices. Some pan-Indian like groups are burdened by large numbers of the tourists and pilgrims. At the same time, many groups are suffering that is called the Sanskritization, and the transformation of primitive nature worship from former Hindu practice. At the same way, this has been led to the clearing the areas in groups to make way for temples, and the shift in focus to the idols rather than the nature itself. Hence, the home gardening, especially the home gardening, is the best way to protect sacred groups at modern generation, modern time, along with the socio-cultural importance of tribal life and culture. So, sacred group is very important nowadays to protect the biodiversity, at the same time the importance, values of the nature and the human being, the socio-cultural aspects, not only in the tribal life, but each and every individual lives, which is very much important. And we should look after and we should protect the sacred group as a home gardening system. If we respect the home garden, if we implement the home garden and the way of as the way of sacred group, how the tribes are practicing, if we can practice it in our day-to-day life, it will be protect us for our betterment of life. Thank you very much. Thanks to all.
आप पर भी माँ सरस्वती की आशीर्वाद है। बहुत अच्छा बोलते हैं मैडम, मतलब सेकंड जी को आपको नमस्कार। आप लोग बिना देखे इतना अच्छा बोलते हैं, ग्रेट। जुड़ते रहिएगा। अग्निहोत्री सर।
बहुत अच्छा आपने कहा, सही कहा आपने। बल्कि इतना अच्छा बोलते, बल्कि आप यो कह दीजिए बिना मीठा खाए इतना अच्छा बोलते हैं। हम तो ये कहेंगे इतना मीठा आपने, कितना कमांड है आपको सब्जेक्ट पर कि एक विषय कुछ भी दे दिया जाए उससे आपके धरात्वा और सार गर्भित, इट इज फुल ऑफ नॉलेज एंड आल्सो कंसंट्रेटेड टू द सब्जेक्ट। दैट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट।
I have prepared a very good, PPT, but I couldn't share it
really,
for the.
really, you are just sharing us the consequences that it is say 11:45 midnight. So it's better not to disturb anybody for anymore. Preparations are there and they will be utilized again whenever we will be having such type of good topic. So your all this परिश्रम मेहनत will not go in vain. वो आपका इस्तेमाल होगा कभी भी आगे चल के। और बहुत अच्छा लगा आपने कितने कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ बताया। आपने वो सारे एरियाज कवर कर दिए जहाँ पर प्लांटेशन हो सकता है और जहाँ पर उनकी ग्रोइंग हो सकती है, उनका सॉइल का स्टडी, कंजर्वेशन, मैनोर, एवरीथिंग। और बीइंग लेडीज आपने ये एक प्रमोट भी कर दिया कि लेडीज भी अपने कम से कम कुछ किचन की होने वाली डे टू डे की चीजें, जैसे कोरिएंडियम है, धनिया, पालक, स्पाइनेच, ये छोटा छोटा बना सकती हैं। गहरी मिट्टी वाले गाजर और प्याज वो सब तो नहीं, मूली, बट स्टिल छोटी छोटी चीजें बना सकती हैं। और छोटा छोटा इसका टमाटो का भी प्लांट आ जाता है, ब्रिंजल का भी आ जाता है। बहुत ही अच्छा लगा। सो का नेफ्यू, एंड स्पेशल थैंक्स फॉर योर सच काइंड